Hello, Davey here. Before I go any further, this Fera 5 dual fan cooler has been sent to me by SilentiumPC, and unfortunately, that's not the only thing they sent. And with that out of the way, let's get into this. Let's start at the start with the unboxing. We've got a few claims on the box: high performance cooling, dual fans, compatibility with all modern AMD and Intel sockets. It's a catch-all word, that. All. Last time I checked, AMD's TR4 socket was pretty modern and part of all modern AMD sockets. Alright, I'll move on. Inside the box is, well, everything you need to install and use the cooler, mostly. You've got the tower, 2 fans, and all the parts for the install. There goes that all word again, exercising a little too much legwork there. While I did get the mounting brackets, fan clips, all the screws and thermal paste, the sample that was sent to me came with 8 square nuts, and as uncomfortable as that sounds, it made the install very mildly less comfortable than it would have been with the clips that should have been sent, which you can see in the manual. SilentiumPC are sending me some to show you how they help the install later. And I'm happy to report later, well, not very happy to report later, is that they never showed up. They were supposed to show up Thursday, and today's Monday, so sorry about that. And if you have an issue, apparently get in touch with them, and then I'll ship them out to you ASAP for free. And that was what I was hoping to say. And I still think they will do that. They're really nice over there, but I guess issues, mistakes happen, that kind of stuff. Anyway, strap yourselves in, kids. This one gets tasty. Okay, seriously. What happened after pretty much having the video completely finished is, frankly, you'll see. I'll preface with this. If you think my reaction to what you're about to see is unwarranted, I don't think you fully understand the situation. Before making a comment, have a look into conflict of interest, and maybe into the differences between an independent review or piece of work, a sponsor, and an advert. This is important, so I'm leaving most of the raw footage in of what you're about to see, but skip ahead to the next chapter if you're only here for the cooler and have no concern at all with the company making the cooler. Okay, updates. I've received this package in the post, and this seems a lot more than just some clips. Mildly concerned. So you'll see, and I'll put I'll actually scan the invoice in. I ripped the invoice off the box, and just to give you guys an idea of where we're at, I've just taken the inbox off of the invoice off of the box, and that's as far as I've got, because that's all as far as I had to look before I got concerned, and I wanted to document this properly. So on the invoice, it's duplicated for some reason. I put black tape on here just so I don't have my stuff showing up on camera. The other stuff shouldn't be so visible. But in the bottom part, at the back, we have, and I'll put it in, put it on a scanner for you to make it more clear, gift pack. Hopefully that's clear. I'll scan it as well. Cool mountain parts and a gift pack. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. If you leave something out of a box, all you need to do is replace the thing or supply the thing left out of the box. You definitely don't put a gift pack in to a reviewer. It's a complete conflict of interest. I had a minor issue before via email that I won't go into. And I thought that would have expressed the whole issue here that you can have. I've never received a gift from them, and I've actively gone out of my way to have any conflict of interest going on. And this is frankly ridiculous. So we're going to unbox it. I'm getting a bit irate before I even know what's inside. For all I know, that could just be some sort of invoice issue that they just stuck it on just so something filled the box. But this is clearly not just clips. So let's unbox it. Also, sorry if the sound isn't as clear. I've got the camera one on, but I've also got the mic off the side there so I can actually unbox it. It might be a little bit grainy. Apologies for that. So take my hand out of this right as well. Now we'll see what's inside. I'm not trying to build suspension, but I also just want to say things going into this before I go too far. And that is if this is a gift, I'm half tempted to just send it back. But obviously, in addition to that, I don't think it would be an overreach to say I no longer want to receive anything from SilentiumPC. And I'm very tempted to say they've also sent me a case or two that I haven't got around to covering yet that I'd also like to send back to them. Or just sell, or whatever. Because it would be a severe conflict of interest to, as a reviewer, not a sponsorship, not anything like that, to have a gift sent to you. It's just quite infuriated by this. Just, yeah. Because it calls into question, like, is this something that happens all the time when somebody mucks something up? Maybe other coverage for SilentiumPC? When something goes a bit wrong, do they just send gift packs out? And so, this is the accessories box with the clips. So that's good. I don't know what else is in here now. And nothing else. They said they didn't say they were sending anything else, so this isn't like a pre-arranged thing. Okay. I forgot the box was so deep and it was sitting on a stool that wasn't so high, so this is a big box. I was half hopeful then that that big wrapping thing was just packaging and it was just an invoice thing. What also mildly irritates me is I'm going to have to edit the video again, which I'd pretty much finished this morning. This might even have to go into its own video that I link people to, but that I think would be... What the hell is this? It actually looks like some sort of gift box. I was going to take it off camera, but then it would seem like I'm swapping things out. I'm just running out of room here. This is exactly as described. And I'm exactly as pissed off as I should be about this. Right, so let's go through the several levels of wrong that this is. When you send a unit for review and it is not a sponsor and it is not an advertisement, there is no transaction, it is just sent for review, which it doesn't count as an advertisement in the UK, that's just how it is. And you get something wrong, you rectify the problem, and that's it. You do not. This isn't a like. So I'll read this out. Dear friends, so not dear. This isn't custom. This is something that apparently appears to be something that they can just print off and ship out when they when they forget to send clips. Dear friends, thank you for being with us and for your commitment and support of our work. We have a sweet package for you to show our gratitude and make your time more pleasant. Please enjoy the games that require, we believe, the most powerful of graphics cards and the one that is always available, your imagination. Right, okay. Thought I was talking about computer games there, and frankly that would... I'm already very, very concerned. I was thinking, that like, in terms of level of what feels like bribery, if you know what I mean, might not technically be bribery, but the higher the value goes, it does get worse, even though it should be as bad as it anyway. So clearly this is a wooden game set. I was really dreading that was an actual, like, so yeah. SilentiumPC branded sweets, I guess. Wouldn't be surprised if these were Silentium branded too. Chocolate. I mean, biscuits, just these things. 16%. I don't drink enough to know what would be 16%. Could it be a port, or I don't know. The audio will be absolutely pants on this. I fully understand that, but this was like, I was just so irritated at the potential that this could be bad, that I had to just do something. And it is, it's as bad as I thought it was. So I'm going to state what is going to happen going forward. As far as I'm concerned, is the most appropriate thing to happen going forward. And you guys can let me know if I'm overstepping a mark. Not say the mark, because it's an opinion here. So, as far as I'm concerned, I will post this review. I will either send back... I'm not going to send this stuff back, because frankly, this is complete waste of money to send this back. It'd be ridiculous. And I will send back the stuff that they've sent me on when they sent me this cooler, which was another case. It was the Ventum VT4, which did look like a good case. And yeah, but I'm just there's a conflict of interest here at the moment. Do I send the cases that I had over a year ago back as well, that I still have that I haven't covered? Do I just not cover them and sell them on? Do I, But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think the relationship with SilentiumPC, for me, especially considering the email I sent prior to this, before this was definitely sent out, I mean, I didn't even raise an issue before this was sent out. Do I just, I accept nothing from them, and if I cover any of their stuff, big if, I will purchase it by myself and I won't accept it from them, because clearly the relationship with SilentiumPC can deteriorate to a point where they send you gift packs to... Shouldn't have tried to be smart there. Gift packs to try and rectify a minor flaw in forgetting to add clips to a cooler, which I didn't have a big issue with, but now I have a massive issue. Yeah, and I even said to them, like, the relationship, I specifically said the relationship between AV-Techie and SilentiumPC in writing is SilentiumPC provides AV-Techie with review samples, and they provide the support required to create a review. And that is the absolute limits of the relationship, and then they do this. So yes. And I would also highly question. I'm putting SilentiumPC as a brand and as a and the reviews out there highly under question. It's the kind of thing where it might seem like an overreaction, but imagine if every company that provided something to a reviewer where they had a potential minor issue did this in efforts to minimize the damage created by that. I mean, just imagine that for a second. Just everything from anyone. Everything on Linus Tech Tips, everything on, say, J2Sense, everything on all the big tech reviews. Imagine if this was a normal. It would just be ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And you couldn't trust anyone. So, yeah. Can you even trust me? I mean, hopefully this being as absolutely transparent as I possibly can, hopefully gives you some trust in me, and hopefully gives you some skepticism towards brands in general, hopefully. Anyways, right, I'm going to have to amend that review now, because it does not make sense. I was saying hopefully they would send it out to me, send the clips out to me in time, and they didn't send them out to me in time. They were too busy, I guess, getting a gift box to me, rather than getting the actual thing that mattered in the first place. They sent this out to me in a tiny box, first class packaging. Probably would have got here on time. Probably would have got here sooner than this did. Yeah, just, yeah. To clarify this, and yes, I am spending a lot of time on this, but believe it or not, some things are more critical than seeing how a cooler mounts or performs. But to clarify my thoughts on this, some of my thoughts on this at least, after the raw reaction, I'm not anti-gift, but a gift from a company that you're actively, not to mention publicly, currently critiquing through one of their products can easily and subconsciously sway the judgment of that critique. This isn't like a festive gift or something like that, it's a gift following an issue being discovered. Whether it was intended this way or not, the intent can easily be construed as giving a nice gift in addition to the fix for an issue, which could make me feel more positive about the problem than I would otherwise. Of course, these days, to anyone who's aware of how egregious this can be, this had the complete opposite effect, which has resulted in really offending me, for what it's worth, professionally. And worse than that, one of the packs of chocolates is out of date by a couple of weeks. Actually true, nearly 3 weeks out of date. Imagine if I'd eaten these and gotten ill. I guess that's one way to sway an opinion. If you ever see someone get ill after a SilentiumPC supported review, you'll know why. Okay, seriously, worse than the offending me bit, I don't trust them now, which really sucks because this wasn't a big issue at all, just a few plastic clips. But now it's a conflict of interest problem, which is just a completely different level of problem. Does this mean the cooler is bad? No, it just means the company has a big conflict of interest problem, which means it's difficult to fully trust reviews where they have supplied the parts unless you can absolutely, comprehensively trust that the reviewer would disclose something like this if it came up. I mean, who knows how much this has happened before, and we just don't know about. Anyway, there are so many angles to look at this, but I think the bottom line is this: to even partially consider sending a gift pack when an issue has been discovered, let alone have a template gift pack available with 3-week-old chocolate on hand, is, as far as I'm concerned, deeply concerning. Actually, screw it. I was also asked to not present the issue when I initially raised it. I wasn't going to mention this since I don't like to cause drama, but it's a completely relevant point. And after explaining how offensive that was regarding my relationship with my viewers, you guys, and how it could technically turn the review into an advert, they followed through with a gift box. I did say I was completely transparent with my viewers, so this shouldn't be a surprise to them. But like I said earlier, for it to be possible for the relationship to deteriorate into this is a big red flag. No reviewer should be accepting under-the-table gifts from a company they're critiquing. So, this is my line. If it was an unrelated Christmas gift, sure. That could be seen as friendly, but should be disclosed anyway. But related to fixing a problem, that's not for me. If you're going to accept those gifts, we're looking at a sponsorship kind of relationship where it's leading towards a paid review, not a trustworthy thing. Is it even technically a thing? That's just an advert, I guess. But if we're adding in a little bit of control, it's straight up an advert. Anyway, that's plenty of my thoughts on this issue. Let me know in the comments what you think, and please enjoy the rest of the review as it stood before this mess. We'll get onto that during the install in a bit, but while we're looking at the manual, it's really solid. The images are nice and clear, with the component focus colored blue at each stage. I'd lean towards maybe increasing the contrast a touch. It's just a nitpick there, but it would help. So, how about the tower itself? Honestly, it's nothing groundbreaking, as is the same with most new coolers. We've got a symmetrical, slim central tower with bare aluminium fins, 4 U-shaped heat pipes running under an aluminium base block, resulting in direct contact with the IHS of the CPU. And following the heat pipes up the tower to the crimped ends, they're covered with this plastic top cap. It's basically the most cost-effective way of making the cooler look good, and it does. There are a few features I'd like to point out though. On the top cap there are some pointers for the fan placement or airflow direction. They coincide with the arrows on the fans, but there's nothing special dictating this needs to be the case since the tower is symmetrical, so I think it's just a beginner-proof touch of guidance to make sure anyone new to this doesn't really mess it up with a push-push or a pull-pull configuration. Sounds nearly as uncomfortable as the square nuts earlier. Moving on, the sides of the tower are folded really nicely and form the rails for the fan clips to engage with. I think this is a really big part of what makes the cooler look well polished. And last little thing to point out, and emphasis on little, is the base of the cooler itself. This thing is very small, coming in at 27mm wide by 31mm deep, which doesn't technically fully cover the IHS of the LJ1151 socket at 28 by 29mm, let alone something like a Ryzen IHS around 40 by 40mm. I think it's about 37 by 37 being more specific. I couldn't find an actual figure, and mine is in my computer, so I can't tell. Anyway, compared to the Scythe Mugen 5, a more premium option at 38mm by 43mm, it's not looking so good, but compared to its biggest competition in terms of features, the Arctic Freezer 34 eSports Duo, which is 25 by 31mm, it is a touch bigger. We'll see if bigger is better later though. But how about those Fluctus 120mm fans the packaging was on about earlier? Well, each fan has its separate box, and yeah, they're 120mm fans. Okay, there is more to them than that, and visually at least they seem pretty decent. They appear to be glass reinforced all over, probably nylon, the same kind of plastic your tools are made of, which is a good start. If it's true, I can't find the identifier code though. Anyway, the branding is on show, but not overwhelmingly, and thankfully they didn't go for a sticker on the hub, which, I mean, it is a little dated now, but by the laws of sticker placement, they'll always get placed just off center, so when they're spinning at low speed, they look a bit weird. Speaking of speed, these are 4-pin PWM fans with a daisy chain wire, great for any free energy device video. They're set to spin up to 1800 RPM and down to 300 RPM. There are some caveats with those figures though. The top 1800 RPM figure is your standard plus or minus 10%. But the lower figure is plus or minus 100 RPM. So you could get really unlucky and get a couple of 400 RPM minimum speed fans. I got lucky with these ones though. At 10% fan speed they were rotating at between 215 and 240 RPM. But it's worth noting that, at least to me, these things are dead quiet up to 500 RPM, and they will stop spinning below 5 or 10% fan speed. Or technically, well, PWM. I say 5 or 10 because one of these kept spinning at 5% when the other one had nothing left to give. This is a far cry from the minimum 800 RPM we saw with the Lian Li Unifan AL120s. If you've got deep pockets as opposed to what you'll need with this, check that video out up there. Anyway, each corner has a rubber tab or anti-vibration mount, which is a nice touch and not to be taken for granted. There are also these flutes. I couldn't think of a better word to describe these notches on the fan blade. Do they help? No idea, but apparently, according to the website, they're to reduce noise output. Serrated, that's the word for the notches. I genuinely couldn't think of a decent word for describing them, but before looking at their site. Anyway, while we're on the site, their webpage for this cooler and the fans at that are awesome. They've got loads of visuals with decent descriptions of the design intent and minimal marketing fluff. And while I'm throwing in information somewhat at random, the cooler as a whole, with the fans and the fans if you want them individually, have a 6-year warranty. So at least that shows a certain level of confidence in the product regarding failure rates and durability. Now let's cover the installation. The install is going onto an LJ1151 board, so I'll be using the included plastic backplate. But for all you AMD owners, the mounting system utilizes the stock backplate, which is excellent as far as I'm concerned, way less wasteful than including loads of backplates in separate coolers. Anyway, like I stated earlier, I don't have any of the clips to hand, so the install is a little more fiddly than it would be with the clips, but not impossible, and actually not that difficult if you cut it into stages. The clips essentially hold the square nuts in the correct position on the plastic backplate. I'm sure they also provide a larger footprint to spread out the load on the back of the board. With the clips, there's no risk of dropping the square nuts, but if you go corner by corner, you can avoid using the clips entirely, but I wouldn't recommend it just based on the load spreading utility alone. Anyway, as you can see, the backplate stops the square nuts from rotating, so you can tighten the posts around the front. Those posts act as spacers and form a base for the top plate to be secured down to. And now it's time for the tower. Of course, this means we need to apply thermal paste. Before the tower goes on, this Pactum PT3 paste is really liquidy. I'm used to MX4, which has much more thickness to it, so this stuff just came flying out the tube. I've actually mounted and thermal tested this cooler twice, and that's because the first time round my application wasn't enough. You're seeing the result of the first application now, and I'll level with you. I thought this much was plenty. I thought I was overdoing it. Something I've learned along the way when mounting coolers is to employ a wiggling effect. A little wiggling, normally before tightening the cooler down to get the thermal paste nice and evenly spread out. This is a little tricky to do off the bat since the heat pipes don't contact the IHS initially, rather they're actually held up by the bolts, and then they're lowered onto the IHS when tightening the screws, which is a little different to most coolers. This doesn't mean you can't wiggle it while screwing the cooler down, but the assembly is pretty solid before it's fully tightened down. That's good in terms of build quality, and actually really helps to separate the cooler from the IHS on disassembly. Great for AMD owners with the PGA boards. PGA sockets? Yes. But makes my wiggling technique more difficult. Whether you like that or not, each to their own. So, for the second attempt, I put a lot more thermal paste on and employed the wiggling technique while I was bolting the cooler down. This resulted in a more even spread of thermal paste, which I think was somewhat related to the wiggling, but there's clearly plenty of paste with load spilling over the sides. Attaching the fans, there's not a lot to say really. They have very standard clips, so it's a very standard affair. For testing purposes, I didn't daisy chain the fans together and then connect them into my fan controller. Rather, I connected them individually to the fan controller to get more accurate readings. With the whole thing installed, it stands at 155mm tall, just shy of the super common 160mm cooler clearance of most ATX cases, micro ATX cases. I haven't really looked at ITX cases for that. Anyway. There are no risks of RAM clearance issues since the front-facing fan is just out of range of the RAM slots, and it looks pretty good. Now, for the performance. No, wait, don't go. I know you don't like graphs. Well, most of you don't like graphs, so I'll give you the TLDR. For those looking at the graphs, blue is the Fera 5 dual fan, and black is the Arctic Freezer 34 eSports Duo, the most sort of feature parity competitive cooler around. At the same noise level, the Fera 5 dual fan is on par with the Freezer 34 eSports Duo during my 60-ish watt testing with Firestrike. At 100-ish watts with Priority 5, it appears to be a touch hotter by about 1 degree. At full fan speed, they're about the same with my 60-ish watt and 100-ish watt testing, but the Fera 5 dual fan is a touch louder by 1 decibel. For those interested, the difference between the first and second thermal paste application was 0.2 degrees minimum and 1.4 degrees maximum. So, which should you get, the dual fan Fera 5 or the dual fan Freezer 34? Well, the Fera 5 is the cheapest cooler I've tested in a while at £30 or €33 compared to the Freezer 34 at £36, €40 or $40. There's a big difference between these two. And that's the dollars bit. Unfortunately, the Fera 5 isn't in the US right now, so it's a pretty straightforward answer for anyone in the US. However, really pay attention to the size of CPU you're bolting these things down to, or the IHS to be more specific. I'd be comfortable using either with my 3700X, which yes, has a larger IHS than the base plate of either of these two coolers. But if I was really pushing it, which I'm not, or I had a more powerful CPU than that, I'd lean towards something with a more suitably sized base plate, like the Side Mugen 5. But for those in the UK or EU, well, the numbers say the Fera 5 dual fan is the best option. Now, that's not what everyone's interested in, so here's my recommendation. If you prefer the look of the Freezer 34, such as the black painted tower, and it also has a super low fan speed like the Fera 5, just thought I'd add that in, then work out if the look is worth spending another £6 or €7, and that's your decision made. Otherwise, if you don't care about the paint job, and you don't have to since the black cap and black fans really help out a lot, seriously, you really can't see the bare aluminium unless you're looking at it at more drastic angles, higher or lower, which inside a case, I think it's negligible. You really don't get those viewing angles, and if it's backlit like this, sure, it might reflect some light, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you're lighting your case and you want to see that light shine through. But anyway, if you agree with those statements, those kind of ideas, then SilentiumPC have just saved you £6 or €7. Otherwise, if you're not comparing it to the Freezer 34, would I recommend it? Well, yeah. At 100 watts, limited to 36.5 dBA, it's less than 10 degrees hotter than a Corsair H150i Pro XT, an AIO that's a 360mm AIO with 3 fans that cost nearly 5 times more. What's not to like? For a budget build, I'd even use that second fan as a case rear fan exhaust if your case doesn't have one to help your graphics card out. You really don't need 2 fans on this cooler, especially one that's so thin. I mean, this isn't a really big cooler. 2 fans is unnecessary. It's more of a looks thing, to be honest. If you wanted to pick up the Fera 5 dual fan, there are Amazon associate links in the video description, which helps me out. But if you don't want to support companies that send under-the-table gift boxes whenever even minor issues are found with their products, perhaps take a second look at the Arctic Freezer 34 eSports Duo. Associate links in the video description. Apologies for the last second jump cut, I need to start work, and this went on longer than I thought. If you want to support me directly, get me doing more of this in the future, you can throw a couple of dollars into the hat over on Patreon. I'd be highly appreciative of that. A big thanks to everyone over there, which most of them have been supporting me on Patreon for over a year, which is highly appreciated. A thanks to SilentiumPC for sending over the Fera 5 dual fan to me for a review. Thanks for checking this one out, and I'll see you next time.